Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Nathan Zaru with us. Nathan, thanks for coming on the program.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bronson. And great pronunciation of my last name, by the way.
Was it really? Or are you being sarcastic?
It was right on.
That's awesome.
It's rare
I
that
had no
happens.
idea. That's perfect. So Nathan, to give the audience a little background here, you run Conductive Consulting, which focuses on helping e-commerce and SaaS companies win customers. And you've also recently been named the Marketing Director of Koombea, which is a high-end design and development shop that also has some of their own products. So we'll get to Koombea in a minute, but let's start with Conductive Consulting and kind of your experience with companies, helping them grow like that. So you say that you're drawn to e-commerce and SaaS companies. Why are you drawn to those kinds of companies? What excites you about e-commerce and SaaS and growth?
Sure. Actually, specifically e-commerce and SaaS is what I do because I have always been interested in bringing the offline online. And for me, what that is what do businesses do offline? They sell things to stay in business. So I'm interested in bringing that first and foremost online, but also realizing that it has to happen in a new and compelling and unique way online. It can't just be the same analog, over. So that's what I focus on, and that's what I specialize in, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Now, so let's say you have a new client. They hire you. They to come in, be a consultant. They're a SaaS or they're an e-commerce company. How do you kind of begin the process? Do you kind of kind of look and see where things are at right now with their current strategy? What does it look like on day one when you enter a company? Kind of give us a virtual consulting here.
Great question. A lot of people, when they hire my type of growth marketing help, they typically don't have too much marketing, or if they do have marketing, it's driven from the business people within the organization, not necessarily marketers. Mm-hmm. I like to bring structure and methods to everything because ultimately it's all about sustainable long-term growth. Nothing should be piecemeal. So for me, I do a realistic evaluation of really what's happening, and then ultimately, more times than not, I focus in on only one or two or three key strategies or channels to get customers or customer development, and stick with those because it's easy to read on TechCrunch about the 10 or 20 or 30 different things you can do, but really it's about for any company that's not mature, only about one or two or three acquisition channels and development channels.
Yeah. If you go beyond that, most people probably don't have the resources to focus on more than a couple channels. Is that right?
That's actually a really good point. And often I'll have clients coming to me saying, how much money do you need? Mm-hmm. And if it's a newer company, if it's a newer startup, I would actually recommend some of the best marketing advice I give you is actually don't use money. How far can you get without buying attention, basically? Because if you can't buy it, you have to earn it. And that fundamentally kind of switches the interaction of your communications. How can I earn attention? What products can I build for what customers to actually build a great brand here?
Yeah. Looking at the different companies you've consulted with, how different are those acquisition channels and those strategies? Do they all kind of end up looking sort of the same because they have the same needs? Or is it just totally different? They all got their own unique kind of things put in place to acquire customers?
It's a good question. It definitely depends on what you're selling. If you're selling hard physical goods via e-commerce, you're going to see some similarities and patterns. SaaS, a little different. I come from a quantitative background, but I'm actually a big fan of sociology. Okay. And it's because sociology studies different groups of people and how they interact. What you're going to see, at least what I see, is that often the successful opportunities are specific or unique to the sociological patterns within the group of the customer you're looking at. Okay. That's kind of a broad answer. But what I'm saying is there's never one answer altogether, but there's certainly if you identify a certain person, a certain demographic, then often what's successful for that demographic will be successful again for a different type of company.
Gotcha. So the view that psychology matters is applied to all of them, but the particular psychology is very different from subculture to subculture, and it's really tapping into that sociology.
No doubt. And I'm no psychologist. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not trained in it. But generally speaking, sociology would be the study of groups because how they react and how they behave together, especially as they're behaving simultaneously, i.e. group influence, very important for marketing. Very important.
Yeah. How do you kind of get your head around that? Are you going to where those groups are and studying what they're saying? Are you just interacting with them one-on-one? What's kind of your process to get inside of the sociology of a group that you don't belong to yourself?
Absolutely. And I think that's actually great we're talking about this so early in the interview, because I work with so many engineers, founders, technical people. I'm semi-technical, but not fully technical. And so often companies are built for, this is the problem I understand. This is the solution I'm going to build for the problem I understand, right? And that's great. That's how the best companies are made. But how, as a marketer, can you hop into all these different types of groups, companies, problem solutions, and make sense of it all? And that's key. Number one step for me, no matter where I go, no matter what I do, is empathy.
There you go.
Put yourself in the shoes of the end customer, the person using the solution. Where are they? What do they do? How do they act? Remove all of your biases and filters, which is hard. Remove all of your biases and filters and really understand who they are and what they do. What I like to say is, where's the online watering hole? So in forests and jungles, in wildlife, in nature, animals are very different. But the one thing that brings them together is their need for water. And so, sure enough, they often all congregate. Competitors, predators, prey. They all congregate on the same watering hole, right? And the reason is because they share that geographic locale in nature. What is it about your customers? What do they share? Where's their online watering holes? Blogs, forums, whatever it might be, stores. Where do they hang out? That's that's typically where I start.
Yeah. And, if you can't find a watering hole, that probably tells you something about the size of the group you're trying to, market to, or about their connectedness. If there's no watering hole, they either don't exist or they're not connected, which are both really bad things when you're trying to build a product for them.
So true. So true. I'm a big fan of the Seth Godin school of thought. He's talking a lot nowadays about like companies and organizations and how to do work in our new economy, which is great. But he's also a marketer, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things he wrote in one of his books a few years ago was he advocates before you start a company, before you build a product, figure out who your customers are. Figure out who your hive is first before you even build anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
No, absolutely. I read his book Tribes, and it's great. He talks about
exactly
that.
Right.
There's people that are waiting for you to, serve them, lead them, be a part of them. But if there's no them, then there's no you to go and serve them. So you got to find the tribe first. Absolutely.
Yep.
As you talk to all these different companies, is there certain advice that you just kind of feel like you're giving them over and over, kind of like a broken record? Like every company needs to hear this. So few companies get it, and you just have to say it over and over.
So, as a consultant, so I'm in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I'm in the center of technology, for better or worse, and I deal with a lot of companies, both professionally and just tangentially, just meeting companies here and there. And no matter where it is, no matter if they're paying for it or not, I end up giving them the same advice, at least the startup type crowd. And that is, there's two pieces of advice. Number one is you have to think small now to grow big later.
Okay.
And what I mean is you definitely want to build a $1 billion company at some point, right? And it's important to remember that's the goal. But there's no way you're going to conquer. There's no way you're going to be able to win or capture a big market until you capture small markets first, right? You have to figure out how to get it done for those smaller groups of people first before you scale it up to however many millions of dollars of revenue or hundreds of million dollars, whatever. Everyone's saying I'm going to go build the next Facebook or whatever, right? And that's great, but few people or few companies actually have the privilege of being the next Facebook.
Yeah.
So you really have to be very strategic about how you grow by one group at a time, taking it slow and making a process out of it. Yeah. And the second piece, actually tangential, is think about your business model. Think about money, because like I said, very few companies get the privilege to be Facebook or Google, and that's the reality. Yet everyone is shooting for that unrealistic opportunity. I'm not saying don't shoot for the opportunity, but once you realize that maybe I don't have a $100 billion business, I have a $1 billion business or a $100 million business, still great, right? You need a business model to figure it out. And this is why I mentioned this, because at least in my area where I see it done the most, I see very smart, intellectual founders and executives who would otherwise be pursuing a business, but I think it's because of the very strong investor influences. They say, "Oh, I'm not thinking about a business model right now. I'm not thinking about money right now."
Yeah.
Well, you're just deferring a very, very hard conversation and plan you have to do later. So why aren't you doing it now?
Yeah.
It's silly, and I think thinking about money right now, whether or not you implement it, is fine. Thinking about it now is very, very important.
No, I think that's great advice. And, it's interesting when you say it that there's very smart people that are not building businesses. It's almost like we're categorizing. Like, look, you're building something, but it's not a business, so let's don't call it a business because there's no revenue model. There's no customers. There's no Visa cards on file.
This is the thing. You hear a lot of people saying, "Hey, I want to go do a startup. I want to go do a startup." I've been a startup since I was 17, almost 10 years. So I'm the poster child, for better or worse. But the problem with that is, so I've been all sorts of startups, and the problem with saying I want to go do a startup is, if you look at, I think, Steve Blank's definition of startup, it is a company, it is an organization in search of a business model, i.e., there's a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing. So you want to actually iterate out of a startup as fast as possible. You want to get out of the startup. I don't want to be in a startup. I want to be in a business. And so as a consultant, I don't work with companies that don't have business models. Actually, I won't. I mean, I'll talk to you a little bit, but I'm not going to work professionally with you unless you have a business model that I can actually say, "You're here. You want to go here. No problem. I'll do that for you." Right?
Well, you couldn't even measure your own success until they have a business model because
Exactly,
they can't measure their own success. So everything's nebulous.
Absolutely right. You might be a fire hose of great creativity and talent, but whether you're not doing it yourself or I'll have to help you, you have to point it in a direction, and you have to know where you're going, and you have to know how you might want to get there. And even if you're wrong, you're testing it and you're proving a model, whether or not it works.
As long as you're going in some direction, you're learning. Going in no direction, there's no learning, and you're not building the system and building the business. After reading your blog, certain kind of themes emerged. As I was looking through the posts that you've written over the years, one of the themes that kind of emerged was using social media for growth. Talk to us a little bit about that. What are your views on using social media and maybe specifically even how you do it a little bit? Sure.
I guess just because the particular time in history where I came up, and social media was, but when I first started with social media, it wasn't called social media. It was called buzz marketing. I remember I wrote in 2007 like a 2-page manual on buzz marketing for this 300-person company because I was the young guy. They said, have the young guy do it. I don't know how it works.
Exactly. You know how this stuff works.
At the time, it was Facebook, and now it's everything else. And I've spent a lot of time working on social media marketing for big and small companies. And in particular, I actually worked with the social media marketing agency. I've worked actually with eBay and Amazon, to name others. So I've worked on the big and small scale. And this is the important thing, and I think it's actually kind of old news now, but I was saying it years ago. That is, it's not about followers. It's not about likes. It's not about just engaging your customers. By the way, engaging is a word that has multiple definitions. It typically has the primary definition is that of warfare, to engage your enemy.
All right.
So, engaging is I've never liked the word engaging.
That's a lot of what marketing is. Let me come beat you up.
To a certain extent.
When it's done poorly, I should say. Yeah.
Sure. It's not about engagement. It's not about followers. It's not about likes. And the best companies, some huge companies have 2 followers. Some nothing companies have 1 million followers. You cannot bother with correlating the likes and followers with success. You can't do that. What you got to do is understand your perspective. So I came up with a kind of a metaphor recently to help one of my clients to explain how you should act as a social media marketing manager or as anyone doing community management, right? And that is to say, the person interacting with the communities needs to be a team captain. So think back to when you did Little League soccer or baseball. There was always a team captain where he or she represented the team in the major decisions with the coaches versus the other team, but he or she also led the team himself or herself because he or she was the most skilled player.
So they were the link.
What's that?
They're the link.
They're the link. Exactly right. So you, as even if you have a formal community manager or not, you need to be the team leader, the team captain. And so once you think about it in that lens, all the perspective makes sense. The team captain never tries to sell crap to their teammates. They do try to inform and they try and teach, right? So once you see the team captain is part coach, i.e. part of the company, but also part player, i.e. part of your customer base. So So if you want to grow, you need to have someone who fundamentally understands your customers. Here's a hint. A great way to find a community manager is to hire your best customers.
No, absolutely. They're the ones that have risen up the ranks to almost be a part of the management.
I've done it before. And then so once you realize that you have to be in the position of team captain, everything else kind of flows out of there. So you're giving them relevant offers, but you're also talking about the industry and the category and the interests in general. Mm-hmm. And that is community management right there. Absolutely. And that's how you use social media, right? And of course you can talk about like using different technologies to really create engaging experiences, which is what I was doing a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Creating engaging experiences is totally fine, but you're never going to sell to your teammates.
Yeah. No, I like that because it's a mindset shift. It's not just here's a tactic, go do it. It's a mindset that informs 1,000 tactics. And so it makes a lot of sense at a high level. Now,
there can never be an exact playbook for social media because you can't predict anything in social media. It's like throwing someone in a crowd of people. Here's what you're going to do if you see someone like this. It's just impossible.
Absolutely. Well, it's like you said earlier. It's groups of people. It's society. It's these subcultures. And so the playbook that works for one won't work for the other anyway. So you're it's 1,000 different playbooks, which is why you need a team captain because they get that community, even though they may not get any other community in the world.
Precisely right. Team captain it is.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Now, on your blog, you also talk a lot about quantitative marketing strategies. Explain to us what you mean by that and kind of how you put those into place a little bit.
Sure. I actually come from a quantitative background. Mm-hmm. In school, when I was younger, I was taking advanced math classes when I was even younger. And I'm no math genius. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I went to college thinking I was hot shit. Turns out I wasn't. I actually majored in math and economics in college. And some people say, that's crazy. How are you a marketer now? I disagree. I wasn't necessarily 100% marketing when I first started, but nothing could have set me up better in my opinion. Math teaches you how to think really well and analytically, and econ teaches you how to test things pretty well. And in my opinion, that's what a lot of marketing needs to be.
And that's what it's going toward more and more is analytics and testing. I mean, that's exactly what you said. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've technically started now, I guess, as I've done the marketing analyst track as well before. Quantitative marketing, this is the important thing about quantitative marketing, can never dictate new ideas or new strategies, but it sure as hell can measure efficacy and how stuff works.
So you still need to be creative.
You need to be creative, exactly.
Yeah.
You need to be creative. You need to have someone who understands people. Marketing is fundamentally about people, but evaluating what works and what doesn't and knowing what to do next, being strategic about it, that's where the math comes in. And I'm not going to bother you with all the mathematical details, but there's, I don't have to tell you about the math and stats involved in marketing, and that's kind of where my background is in.
No, that's great. You also talk a lot about sales optimization. What do you mean when you use the phrase sales optimization? Are we talking about optimizing the funnel or something else?
That it means that among a couple other things. So when you're working with technology companies, in particular, but also SaaS companies, but also e-commerce companies, we're selling, in this case, software, or if in e-commerce, something that came out of the founder's head and then they made it, right? So it is when I'm dealing with a technology company or a startup, it's frequently founders and non-marketing executives making the decision what goes on the website. I'm talking about the marketing website, i.e., what website you use to get the sale. It's fundamentally these people making the decision what goes on the website. But the problem with that is they're inside the company. They're probably technical. They really they're product people. They want to say, "This is the product. I made all this stuff because this is exactly what the product needs to be," and they're probably right. So therefore, you, Mr. Customer, I'm going to show you all this stuff, and you're just going to make the decision. Oh, of course you'll buy it. This is the good shit I made. I show you the good shit. You'll buy it. The problem is that doesn't work.
Because right, so what do you do with that then? What does work? What do you suggest?
Exactly. Now, marketing is fundamentally about people, and people act on emotion. So it's your job as a marketer or as a growth hacker, making any kind of marketing website to get people excited about your product. I mean, the case study is Apple. I mean, Apple doesn't list the features and like the specifications 100%, whereas Windows does. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about, but more on a fundamental level. And so what you can do is start with kind of like just the tip. And that's kind of nasty. Start with just the tip, right? Give them what they need to get excited. And have everything on the website that they actually need to make the purchase decision, right? But the website should be designed around virgin customers and new customers who maybe already understand the problems but don't understand your product yet. So like, take it from an outside-in perspective. Apparently, MBAs are supposed to be trained in this type of thing, but as far as I can tell, they're not trained in sales. You need to show the customer what is important for them when they first interact with your brand.
Yeah.
Not what is an informed industry expert need to make a decision.
No, that's great. And you use the example of Apple, and that one makes a lot of sense because you go to the Apple homepage, and here's the new device, here's the word that describes it, here's the awesome video to get into it. And then when you're 5 pages into the site, you get the specs, the width, the dimension, the height, the resolution. They don't lead with all the details, even though they spent years perfecting those details. They didn't feel the need to put them in the homepage because they had restraint. Give you what you need, bring you in, and then kind of sell from there. So it makes a lot of sense.
I have a tip real quick for you, actually, if you don't mind me hopping in.
Absolutely.
When we're in the business of selling software or selling hard goods, it's easy to think too abstract about it. But look at any like new media company, like a Vice TV or something like that, or any company that produces original content. You go to their homepage. Go to their homepage. And see, I don't even know. You can make up an example. Go to any homepage of any media company, and they're going to show you the newest, most coolest video or story that they have. That's what they're going to show you. And then you're going to say, oh, this is really cool. Let me look at this. Let me consume this content, and let me dive deeper. That's how the fundamental interaction should go when you're selling something. Yeah. Show them your newest, coolest shit. Don't worry about – you're basically putting a barrier of all those details and specifications. Don't worry about all that. Give them the newest, coolest shit, right? Yeah. Or whatever's most important to your customer. Let them say, that's really cool, and then let them dive deeper.
Now, that example even makes more sense because I never thought about it, so it's kind of a new thing because – if you went to CBS.com and they were like, look, here's how many people we have on staff. Here's how much money we spend on original, shows and programming. Here's some awards we won. And then if I go to NBC and they're like, hey, here's 30 Rock, watch it. I'm going to go to NBC. I mean, it's going to catch me,
It's not. You're exactly right. I actually use the example HBO with my clients, but yeah, you're totally.
No, absolutely. And I'm not saying either of those do it that way, but they probably both do it the way you're saying, which is film a show. Yeah.
You need to give it a show. Exactly.
Yeah. A few months back, you wrote a really interesting blog article, and I want to kind of dive into this one a little bit more because I think it's just so relevant to people in our audience that are building SaaS products. You talked about the pricing structure, and I think you just gave some really good tips on that. First, tell us what most kind of pricing tiers look like that you don't like. Describe them to us just kind of briefly.
So this is a good call. Nice job finding this article. I'm not a blogger by any means. I just talk about the important shit I learned on my blog, and I show it to clients when I work with them. So it's like kind of a reference guide. So SaaS pricing is totally broken. It just it's built, and this is where the technical thing comes into play. It's to technical people saying this is a technical product. I'm going to give you technical specifications to decide upon. And the best example of actually this working is Heroku. Go to Heroku.com. But this is the key thing. Heroku is for technical people.
Exactly. So the pricing page, that stuff.
The pricing page is exactly what it needs to be. It's a beautiful, beautiful pricing page. But guess what? What if you're not selling to technical people or engineers, right? Then what do? You have to, and especially if you're selling marketing software, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, right? So back to the SaaS pricing. It looks like just barfing on the page. Yeah. Like, it looks like they want to get everything out, and they don't have enough room for it. There's barf on the page with all their stuff, and they have tiers because they're read by some VC. Oh, you got to tier your software because that's what that's what enterprise software companies do. You tier your software, and there's all these arbitrary tiers and stuff like that. It doesn't work. And so what you got to do, a couple different things. Simplicity, obviously, but simplicity by using one metric, not 10.
Okay.
And the one metric that everyone understands. Everyone, the person you're selling to, all the way on up to the CEO and all the C-level executives in the organization.
Okay, so give us an example of one of those kinds of metrics to make sure everybody's on the same page here.
I'm going to use a very solid example. A company I love, rjmetrics.com. They're basically data warehousing as a service. I've done it the hard way before with e-commerce companies. It sucks. They make it easy. I've never worked with them. I've talked to their founder a couple times. They're really cool people, but I've never worked with them. They used to have, in the pricing structure, rows of data. And a row is for every, there's one row for every unique piece of data you want to capture. So name, address, location, number of products bought, type of sex, male or female, and there's it could be 20, 30, 40 rows per customer easily, right? And so then if you're saying, I want to buy RJ Metrics, how many rows do I need? Oh, shit. Okay, I have 10,000 customers, and I have, on average, 3.5 rows per customer. So I'm in the 50,000 range, maybe 100,000. I don't know how much it is, and it could fluctuate. If you buy that, if you buy that software, you fundamentally don't know what you're getting charged for, and actually you're disincentivized to use it, because if you hook up more channels of data for each customer, you're going to get dinged. Just recently, I talked with them recently about some stuff. They changed it, and sure enough, they changed it to be tiered off of number of customers. So all the arbitrary stuff about customers before, which no one on the C-level team wouldn't understand, by the way, is just based off customers. So, hey, if you have under 10,000 customers, you're this. You have less than 50,000 customers, you're this. And so anyone can understand, the person buying it, on up to the CEO. I have 50,000 customers. Look at the pricing page, boom, there I am. No surprises.
Gotcha. Instead of having to do math or try to read what bullet point is on which plan and how that compares to the other plan. And you don't even know what you should buy. And if you're overpaying or underpaying and you're confused, instead if you say, look, this is the structure for if you have 10,000 customers, I can't go wrong. That's the only tier for me. And so there's no buyer's remorse and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And the other thing is they tied it to customers, which if you're an e-commerce business or SaaS business, that's fundamentally tied to your success. So you're tying it to something that makes you successful. So the more customers you have, it's not a problem. I'd rather pay more. And the other thing is, if you can avoid it, avoid tiers altogether. Just check out intercom.io, intercom.io. They just have $50 a month. Just use our software, $50 a month. It's great. And if I were to compare it, I'm a big fan of nightlife, clubbing, and promotions. I used to do some promotions when I was younger. It was fun stuff. Think about especially if this is software for SaaS, especially only if this is software. Think about it like a club, like a party. Don't worry about the different types of tickets that you can sell. Just make sure it's a great party for everybody. And even better, if you can give them a great way to tell their friends about it. Yeah, there you go. That makes a lot of sense. So tell us, what have been some of your big wins for clients? What are some of the things you can point to, be like, you may not be able to name the company and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, what's kind of happened from these sort of efforts that you've put in with your consulting? Sure. I mean, I can't name companies. I can't name companies too much, obviously. But for us, this one e-commerce company, they were selling men's apparel. They didn't know they had a great product. They had no idea who they were selling to. I made some tweaks. Did a little bit of research, not formal industry research, but more like me screwing around with numbers. And I don't like industry research. I don't really believe research, by the way. Me screwing around numbers. They found their customer. I found them a couple really good acquisition sources, and they're at a lot of customers right now, doing pretty well. Another customer of mine, they sell vitamins, or former customer of mine, former client of mine. They sell vitamins, and they did a really good job making the product, not so good job presenting it, right? You need to have, and even vitamins is kind of boring, right? But guess what? Vitamins are tied to your health. If you can make vitamins awesome, if you can make the experience of taking vitamins awesome, thinking that you're becoming healthier, that's going to be really strong value as a company. I helped them improve their packaging, their messaging. Now it's like all their customers are stoked on the company, and they're doing really well. No, that's great. Now, right now, you're the marketing director at Koombea. So tell us just briefly, what is Koombea? Yeah, so I should mention, I was doing Conductive Consulting, and one of my clients was Koombea.com. Okay. So you just kind of ramped it up and went on with them full time now. I worked with them for a little bit, and it was really great, really, really great company. So here I am now, full time, Koombea.com. I'm the director of marketing. Koombea is a higher-end design and development digital agency. So if you're a startup, if you're a company, if you're a technology company of any sort, that you need a website, you need a mobile app, we do it for you. So we're an agency, and we focus a lot on the design. Obviously, we're Ruby on Rails, and technically, if you're interested in this kind of thing, we're Scrum certified, have all this really cool Lean Agile certifications, stuff like that. We're about 100 people big. Yeah, that's big for a development shop. How long have you been there? Is it just a few months or? Yeah, a few months. I think since November, December, something like that. Okay, so you're still kind of, getting a flow down for what you're going to be doing there, I'm sure. No doubt. You probably won't have a lot of details for the questions I'm going to ask about the marketing there, but you might have some ideas of what you're going to be trying to do. So it seems like in talking to you, part of your role there is going to be to acquire new customers to the agency side itself, the design and development, and that those kind of things. And then the other side is they have their own products. So let's talk about the agency itself first. What plans do you have to kind of grow the agency side of things?
Yeah, so I've done some work with agencies before. I've worked in an agency. I was employee number one for a social media marketing agency a few years ago. And agencies are really interesting animals, and they have different financial operations than typical technology companies. But Koombea has designers and developers like crazy, and we do really, really great work. But and our clients love it. What I'm excited to do actually is take our marketing, take the brand to the next level, because we're kind of like that silent, stealthy shop that not too many people have heard of yet. But the fact of the matter is, we've worked with a lot of companies you might know around this area in San Francisco.
That's exactly what I was thinking. When I went to their site, I've never heard of them, and their work is spectacular. I don't know why I haven't heard of them, honestly.
Exactly right. And I love it because it makes my job easier as a marketer. But it's actually really great to get the type of operations down and to figure out how to make these beautiful applications that we do before someone like me comes in. So me coming in is just going to be just a very fluid process to the brand up. And I have some really good things planned. I can't tell you too much yet, but if anyone lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, starting here, you're going to see some really cool stuff.
Okay, so it might be some local stuff, maybe even some offline stuff, huh?
To start with.
All right, that's good.
You got to focus. I'm going to take my own advice. I tell technology companies to focus.
Yeah.
Well, we work with technology companies, and I live around 10,000 or 20,000 companies within 10 miles.
Your market, your watering hole is the city you live in by chance. So
exactly,
you can do things that take your own advice, and you don't need to use digital distribution channels yet, and you can stay busy right in the San Francisco area.
And that's the funny thing, man. I'm a digital marketer, but because my watering hole is exactly as you said, right here, I don't have to use too much digital right now.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a hint what we're using for our upcoming...
give us a little something. Come on, give us something.
Give you a little DeLorean time machine, exact replica.
Nice.
That's all I can say.
I'll give you a little story. Is it the McLaren? Is that the company that makes it?
It's the DeLorean. Close though.
The DeLorean. The company that still works on them and repairs them is right down the road from my house. So when I drive home, I see the Back to the Future cars like parked all over the place.
No way.
I kid you not.
Wow.
Yeah. So do something with that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. No doubt.
Absolutely. All right. Now you're also tasked with marketing the products themselves that Koombea has produced. So tell us, first of all, what are the two main products I believe that Koombea has right now?
Yeah, so we have a few different ones, and we've recently launched some newer ones we like a lot. The main one is, there's two. Well, the first one's Rilo.com, which is actually a website. It's a software product to get small businesses online, small service-based businesses, SMBs online. In general, by the way, before Koombea, I'm a big believer in SMBs. If you look at the economic trends over the past 50 years or so, irrefutably, people are moving from big corporations to SMBs. Absolutely. Not just small and medium business, but also startups, technology companies of all that variety. So anything you can do to reinforce and bring up SMBs, in my opinion, will make you successful in the future, because no longer are we necessarily tied to corporations, because it's kind of a capitalist invention. I'm a big capitalist myself, but a corporation is a capitalistic invention from 300 years ago that was kind of fading out. Anyways, Rilo helps small and medium businesses get online, and it's actually a product for South America, because South America has been unserved by these types of companies that we see all the time in the U.S., but they don't have it in South America. So we're building something natively for South America, and we're growing from there.
You know what? Real quick, if I can jump in, when I went to the website for Rilo doing research for this interview, it came up and it was in Spanish, and I instantly thought, genius, I love it. Like, that is so genius that you're marketing to something to South America. Because, we have Squarespace here. We have, so many different options here. But to give SMBs in South America that opportunity, I thought instantly was such a good play. So I totally agree there.
No doubt. It's actually Colombia. We're actually based in Colombia.
Yeah.
Koombea, the company. So it made sense for us. And the richest man in the world made his money in South America. So I'll just say that. Carlos Slim. So I should mention that. The other important company, the other important product for us is Dashable.com. So it's definitely a for us, by us kind of product. We're a almost 100-person agency And if you know anything about the agency business, there's a lot of headaches with regard to billing, accounting, invoicing, time tracking. And if you're an independent consultant or freelancer, if you ever worked hourly, you've experienced the same problems. And so time tracking, time sheets are, other than being on a screen, the technology hasn't changed since your grandparents used them. So it's like 8 to 5, a 1 hour lunch. It's boring, it's tedious, and it never gets done properly. It's not very efficient. It doesn't give the stakeholders like managers and clients the accountability and transparency they need. So we're actually taking the old model and throwing it out. We have a totally new idea of concept of time tracking from the future, is what I'm calling it.
Now I see where the time travel comes in. Exactly. I'm putting it together.
All right, no doubt. And so those are our two main products. We have some other cool ones, but we work. We have kind of like a rule. It's not exactly Google 20% time, but it's more like Koombea 10 to 20 whatever percent time it is. We have so many great engineers and designers, and we have such great products. We want to make our own, and so we have a few out. We're coming out with more in the future as well.
Yeah, makes sense. So right now, as you kind of ramp up and try to grow these products, how are you spending your days at Koombea right now? Are you being that team captain on social media? Are you looking for acquisition channels to see what possibilities might be out there? Like, what do you do when you show up in the morning after you get a cup of coffee?
Good question. I'm not the team captain, although I just hired a team captain, which I'm pretty excited about. She just graduated from University of Illinois. So it's perfect. By the way, great way to get into marketing if you're a recent graduate, as just community management. That's a great way to do it. And by the way, I should mention my other bias. Community managers should be part marketing, part customer service, always. But that's
no, it makes sense.
So what do I do? So what do I do? I try and do equal, half my time on Koombea, the agency, half my time on the products. Spending most of my time on the product side of Dashable. It's a newer product. It's a product that it's an industry that is well established, but a lot of the solutions are solving the wrong problem, the problem of timesheets. So right now I'm building up Dashable acquisition channels, finding the watering holes, and figuring out the messaging that resonates with our customers. Right. On the Koombea side of things, I'm helping. I can't talk too much about the Koombea side of things, but like I said, it's like this it's really a strong brand that you never heard of. So what do you do to leverage that in the best way possible? And the answer is set up some really, really cool partnerships and incoming deals, both direct and distribution deals to get our brand out in the wild. Because I'm a marketer first and foremost, and a digital marketer first and foremost, but I'm agnostic as to where success can come from, as long as it's reliable and repeatable. So
as you should be.
Exactly.
No, that's great.
I'm a success story. I go where the success is. So I don't strictly say. The only problem with taking a quantitative only approach is it becomes about spreadsheets and numbers, which is where my background is. But the problem with that is marketing is about people and feelings. And so for Koombea, and like I said, my watering hole is here. I'm thinking about how can I make people feel the best about Koombea.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great insight into just marketing and how it fits with the analytics side of things as well. Well, Nathan, this has been a great interview. Let me ask you one last question, kind of high level. Sure. You can take it any direction you want here. What's the best advice that you can give to any startup that's just attempting to acquire new users? What would you tell them? Yeah, so if we're talking about startups, you have to realize that first off, your shit isn't that cool unless you make it really, really cool. And not every company can take the "I'm a really cool company" approach. If you're selling IT software, then you can't be that cool. Like, hey, skateboard with the backward baseball hat. You can't do that, right? So shit really isn't that cool. I like Peter Thiel's advice actually, and you know Peter Thiel. He's the pretty famous investor, her first investor in Facebook. Yeah, I saw him about a year ago. He says companies need to focus on creating creative monopolies. So monopoly on, and I'm going to juxtapose that with my own biases, as to say, marketing is about ideas. So how can you create a monopoly on an idea? Right? It's easy to say, this is my product, those are my competitors. I'm going to put my product right next to those competitors so that everyone kind of understands what's happening, right? So I was like, oh, I'm kind of like them, I'll be right there in the middle.
And
Okay.
that's the easy thing to do because that's actually the safe thing to do. The dangerous thing to do is say, these are my competitors, I'm over there. Even though I solve a similar problem. It's a dangerous proposition to go over there.
Gotcha.
Right? And maybe you shouldn't, not yet in your cycle. But if your competitors are here, they're doing it because that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
And even my life, personally and professionally, is if you can't expect to get outstanding results if you keep doing things the same way they've always been done.
Yeah.
So
kind of like what you're doing with the timesheets. It's like
exactly.
you're in the same ball game, but it's almost a different sport.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. And it's a different sport altogether.
Yeah.
So you got to go over there. It's hard to get people to look over there, but if you can do it properly, then you're going to have that monopoly.
And that's what you're doing now, is trying to get people to look over there with what you're doing with Koombea there. That makes a lot of sense. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on this program and just share insights with the consulting side of things, and also with Koombea. And so people should go check out Koombea. They do some really beautiful design work, and I'm a tough critic, so I don't say that about too many things. And I think their stuff is top notch. So definitely check them out. Thanks again, Nathan.
All right, Bronson. Thank you.